Okay, so hopefully we are streaming. YouTube seems to not be cooperating, and I don't really know why. I'm very, very confused here. Let's check. Yeah, it says YouTube is not cooperating for some reason. Even though I got the live notification. Well, let me stop this and try to restart this for anyone. Okay, Twitch is connecting. Stream is live. Beam is on. Yeah, Twitch is on. Okay, let's check out Twitch. It's Twitchception this. Yep, okay, so Twitch is live. And yeah, no one can. Oh, here, I might just switch over to my main screen. So Twitch is live. So we're good there. And Beam should be live. Yep, Beam is live, so that's not an issue. Looks like YouTube is just pretty much sucking. Okay, no, there we go. Okay, YouTube's finally live now. It just shows connecting. There we go. Yeah, YouTube was having an issue there. Okay. Alright, now we finally got everything running. Good morning, Schlump. Yeah, we just had an issue with some stuff not propagating over properly, it looks like, but looks like we might be okay. Alright. Wait for the stupid Epic Games to load up. There we go. Okay. So, the first thing I planned on doing was, seriously, man. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is apparently fix one of my projects. I added 2 plugins to my library and then I removed the plugins, but apparently any project I ran that used those plugins are now linked to those plugins. That is friggin' awesome. So we'll go ahead and fix this first, apparently. Oops. We don't need that one, we don't need that one. Yeah, I completely screwed that one up. There we go. Okay, so that's super annoying. Try this again. We should be good this time. Okay. Okay, so I've got one of the viewers who's been having some trouble with some basic stuff, and I'm going to go ahead, and the first part of this is I'm going to create up a quick little project to try to do what he wants done. And that way he can view it now and he can see how it's done, or he'll be able to watch the replay and maybe see where his issue is. So what he's doing is he has a game where he plays and he collects coins, and he wants the score to be shown on the main menu, the title screen, as the high score. So it's a pretty simple basic operation setup if you've used game programming or the engine for a while, but for a new person, having things persist between different maps, having things show in the appropriate user interface, having 2 different user interfaces with different sets of variables, and smoothly moving your character control back and forth is something some people have difficulty with. So we're going to whip up a pretty simple example. A start screen, a game screen, we'll collect a few coins, and we'll do some logic using the game instance to travel that data back and forth between the maps, and we'll just basically maintain a high score object and a level object, basically, for coins. And then also throw in a little bit extra there because it won't take too much time, saving and loading that high score out to disk so it's persistent between play sessions. So let's get started with that. And good morning, Mr. Ryan. Let me guess, your basic stuff is how to convert UMG widgets into slate widgets. Something super simple. clear out my filters here. Let's do a new map because we're going to need a new map. And we'll save this. There we go. My content, high score. And this will be high score main menu map. And we don't really care about much in here, but we're going to duplicate this out. And this one will be our game map. We'll go with that. We're going to grab our player and move him over. Keep in mind, this is probably not something most people need to do, but because I have multiple projects in the same thing, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have everything unique and contained. So this is a high score player. And this will be our high score game mode. Pop open our game mode. Set this up for our pawn, default pawn. I hate how they moved it because it used to be up here and now it's down here and it's annoying to find because I always lose it. Okay, so let's grab our, let's save everything. So we'll grab our main menu. I'm going to get rid of stuff in the background just so we can easily identify the fact that this is going to be our main menu. Set up the main menu to use our high score game mode. Save it out, go to our main map, tell it to use the high score game mode, hit play, and we should be good. There we go. We got a high score player. We got our basics. Let's see. Extra question on why do you still want to use Slate? Well, Slate isn't deprecated. Slate drives everything. Slate drives the entire user interface for the editor. Slate drives the back end for every UMG widget you see. UMG is just the front end for Slate. I was making a joke on Ryan's behalf, or Katatus, because he made a nice little plugin to create widgets in UMG and then export them into usable in Slate. So if you're using C++ and you want to use Slate, you could actually use UMG to design it, and then Slate code is available to you. Let's see, Schlump. Thought you found a solution for procedural meshes. You managed to make a square. Problem is the hole is there but not visible. Ouch, that's a weird one. Did you ever determine why the hole is there but not visible? Are you maybe drawing the hole in the wrong order so that way your normals are facing you rather than the opposite? I wonder if that would work as a cheat. If you just drew your not your normals, your yeah, it would be your normals, yeah. If you drew your vertexes backwards so your normals were facing the opposite direction so it looked like it was a hole, that would be funny. Let's see, NH. That is good to hear. I'm glad you were able to complete a project. I am glad to hear that. That is what I like to hear. Let's do. Normally, I would go piece by piece, and then fill in stuff. But that seems kind of weird. We know what we're accomplishing here, but let's do a game instance because we need a game instance. Because that was the point here. We're going to use the game instance to hold the information. So we'll call this one high score game instance. Okay, I think I know what I'm going to do. So let's grab our game instance. We're going to have two variables in here. Both will be integers. And this one will be our high score. And this will be our current score. So we'll just save those out. We'll go to our game mode and change out our game. Oh, no. See, yeah, this is also one of those issues I run into since I'm using one project. The instance is in the project settings, which is a giant pain in the butt. So there we go. That also breaks half my other projects, which is awesome. But not a big deal. We should have our high score game instance in here now, and we should be good. And good morning, Harry. And hello, Sirius. Okay, so since you're here, I'm going to recap what I'm doing, and then I'm just literally going to walk through everything I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. Hopefully it'll spark either a change in your code, or you'll notice something you did differently, or you notice the problem. And then if you still have issues at the end, like questions, we'll cover them then. But so far, basically, I've created a main menu map for our main menu. I created a game map, which is where our game's going to be. I have my player, which is going to run around and collect stuff. I have my game instance with our 2 variables, high score and current score. And then I have my game mode, so that way I make sure I'm using the proper player and all that stuff. To answer your question, NH, yes, that Katatus is the same one who made all of the blueprint stuff back in the day for Unreal Engine. He still does that stuff. He's got some awesome books for blueprint learning. And he's the person I learned from. So yes, he is that Katatus. Let's make a basic blueprint we can pick up. So we'll call this one coin. And we're going to make this really simple. I just going to replace my scene component so that way I don't have that circle. We're going to add in a sphere. We're going to crush the sphere. That was the wrong direction to crush the sphere. Let's crush it this way. There we go. That way it looks kind of like a coin. We're going to give it a yellow material. So we'll make a new material called coin. And we'll do a color. Let's make it emissive because I like emissive. We'll make it yellow. And we'll consider that done. We'll give this material. Called it coin, but I have to find it. Let's just type in coin. There we go. There we go. So now we have coin. So in theory, oops, that's material. We could just grab some blueprints. Let me reorganize this a little bit. Maybe better. There we go. And we grab some coins, and there we go. So there's some coins we should be able to collect like that. Obviously, we can't collect them right now because nothing's set up, but we have some coins we can pick up. Harry, I wish I could participate in the game jam this weekend, but it is flooding where I'm living, so it's got a lot of housework and yard work I'm going to have to do to keep it under control, and just not going to have time. I wish I could have participated in the global game jam. It would have been nice. But I kind of need a place to live first, just to make sure I have somewhere to live. We're not going to pick up the coins yet. Let's do our first user interface. So since we're in the game, we're going to make our widget blueprint. We'll call this one Game UI. This is our game's user interface. And we'll just put a text block on the top. We will center it at the top. Let's see, not over and down 150. That's way too far. Let's go 50. We'll just call this one score. We'll call it coins. Because I'm going to change it here in a second anyways. It really doesn't matter. Change the size to 42. And we'll leave it like that. Let's name it coins text block. Set up as a variable. And now we have something we can change. I'm going to have the game instance drive all of our settings, I think. Let's see. Let's see. Hello, Mad Governor. Let's see. It's not visible because I only worked with set collision response to channel, note, and nothing regarding the visibility. So you go through, but you can't see the whole. Aha. Interesting. I haven't made any extra progress regarding static mesh components. I'm still researching. It's going to require booleans, and I don't know how to do those. I'm going to go ahead and make another interface right here while my brain's trying to think. And we'll call this one main menu UI. And we'll do the same thing we did before. We'll put a text at the top. We'll call this one high score text. We'll anchor this one at 0, down 60, put it halfway through, tell it to size, tell it to justify, change its size as well. We'll make this one light though, so it looks a little different. There we go. So this will be our main menu. We'll put a button in here. And we'll do another button right here. Let's replace the second button, and let's wrap this first button with a vertical box so we can make sure our buttons are actually organized like that. There we go. Size our vertical box. Okay, we're good. Slap some text on these boxes like that. Tell our text it wants to be alone. So we'll give it a little bit of spacing around it, like that. So we have our basics. Let's put a spacer in there because I don't like things that touch each other. So we'll put a spacer right here. We'll put the spacer at 35, and there we go. We have our 2 basic buttons. This one's going to be called Start Game, and this one's going to be called Reset. And we actually need to center this. So we're going to center it in the middle. We're going to center it literally in the middle. We're going to reset any of our offsets and sizes like that, and there we go. Now our menu is in the center. Let's name our buttons. So we'll call this one Start Button. We'll call this one Reset Button. Okay, so we have our basics here. Let's give this the word coins because we can. Okay, so we have our basics. So I'm thinking the user interface should set itself, and then whenever the player collects something, they should talk to the user interface. Now, I'm going to tell you this one right now, serious. We can use the game instance to store our variables, and that's fine. But I personally wouldn't use the game instance to store the functions and events that talk to each other. So I'm not going to do that. I'm trying to figure out if I want to put it in the game mode or if I want to put it in the player. Because basically the player's going to run around, the player's going to hit one of the coins. We'll have the coin tell the game mode that it picked up a coin. I'm going to have the game mode take care of it. The game mode's usually a really easy way to keep things agnostic. So let me show you that. So we have our game mode. And what I'm going to do is make, let's make a custom event. We'll call this one, we'll call it increase score, because technically that's what we want it to do. And then we'll have another one called update UI. We'll make it really simple like this. Okay, so we'll do that. So let's grab our coin, and our coin is going to handle taking care of itself. So grab our sphere, find the on-player hit. So when something hits the sphere, we are going to, well, we can't drag off. We're going to get the game mode. We're going to cast it to our game mode. Now, if I was doing, I'm going to cast it to my high score game mode, because that's my game mode. If I was doing this normally, I would probably be using blueprint interfaces just so I don't have to cast, because I hate casting. But there's nothing wrong with doing it this way, so we're going to do it this way. So we're going to get our game mode, and then we're going to increase score. So whenever something hits us, I'd also do a check and make sure it's our player, but this is just the basics. We'll get our game mode, cast it the high score, and then tell it to increase score. Should be super simple. And increase score is basically going to get our game instance, cast it to the correct game instance, so our high score, and then we're going to grab our current score variable, because we're inside of our game. We're going to add 1 to it, and then we're going to set the current score wherever it's hiding at. There we go. Now we could use the increment node, and it would work perfectly fine. You'll get the same result. But if we do it this way, you technically leave it open to, for example, your coin could have a variable called value or points or whatever, or how many coins it's worth. And then you just pass that to the increased score, and then the increased score could take that value and pass it in here, and then you're basically adding. It gives you flexibility in the future. But for now, we're just going to go with 1. So this should, if we call it properly, grab and increment. So we're going to test this to make sure. Because test as soon as possible, or else stuff breaks, and then you get super confused that something an hour ago stopped working. I think it's set up. I don't have it set to destroy. There we go. So as you can see, since I'm not destroying, but the event's working. Every time I hit it, because I'm running into it when I hold down the forward button, it's calling a different event. It is incrementing our score. So that's good. We should probably go ahead and destroy ourselves after we pick ourselves up. So let's go and destroy the actor. Now it should be a lot cleaner. We should pick it up, get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. So now we can collect 6 coins, and they are all inside of our game instance. So our game instance now has a variable called current score that it is incrementing. So in theory, now we just need to update our UI. So we'll call update UI after we've increased the score, because something's changed, and we're going to change our UI. So we have 2 choices here. We can have the high score game mode. For example, we could have the game mode create the user interface, keep a reference to it, and go from there. The problem is, and I do see your question, Wander. Give me a second. The problem is, where do we want to keep this user interface? Is it related to the player? Is it related to the game? Is it going to be persistent? I'm guessing we want to keep this persistent. So even if the player dies, we still want to keep track of things. If we don't, we reload it. It's not really a big deal. We technically kind of have a little bit of an issue here, but we're going to fix this here actually shortly. But I think I'm going to do this in the game mode. So we're going to do begin play. So whenever the game mode comes into life, we're going to create our widget. We're going to create the high score widget blueprint. Seriously, what did I call it? Oh, game UI. Yeah, so this is why, yeah, high score game UI and high score main menu. There we go. Now it's actually findable. There we go. High score game UI. We will promote this to a variable. This will be our game UI reference. We'll go and add this to the viewport. So in theory now, we should have something that says coins. Good. My personal preference is to leave any logic inside of the user interface and let the user interface style itself. So all we're going to do is pass this information to our user interface. So if we find our user interface, which is this one right here, and we go into our events, we'll make a new event in here. We'll call this one update, what was that, coins. Update coins, update display. We'll just call it update coins. It's easy enough to change. You have coins to score. Honestly, I mean, I shouldn't be interchanging. I shouldn't be using coins in some places, score in other places, but it's not really that big of a deal as long as you keep track of it yourself. But we called our event, wherever I put update coins. So all that happens is when the UI is updated, we're going to call update coins, which would help if I actually called it on the game user interface. There we go. Update coins, and this will basically talk to our user interface and tell it to update the coins. We have a problem where we don't actually tell it what to do, so we're going to make a new input, and this will be the new value, and this will be an integer, and we're going to pass in whatever the new value should be for the coins. We can go back to our game mode, and we can tell it to update coins. We need to basically repeat this stuff right here, which is grabbing our game instance, high score, and current score. Now, if you're doing multiple stuff like this, you're going to have... honestly, if we're going to be honest here, this isn't a huge amount of processing power. Basically to get, cast, and redo, it's not a big deal. But if you wanted to make things a little bit more efficient, when you start the game, at some point, you're going to grab this stuff here, save this out to a variable, so then you only need to grab the variable and grab the current score. But keeping it open like this gives you the ability to fine-tune and tweak things later and learn a little bit of that stuff. So at this point, it should, every time we grab a coin, it should update the coins in the user interface. So this one should be pretty simple. Here's our coins text block. We'll set the text. We are going to cheat, and I want the text formatted, so we're going to format text. Well, this isn't cheating technically. This is what it's for. But we're going to get it to say coins, colon, and then the open brackety curly thingies. We're going to call this coins. And close it. That'll give us a new input called coins. Boop, we can plop that right into there. And now the output will be coins, colon, space, and then whatever our value for coins is. There's still some other things in here. We could format the integer better, but I just want to see something work. That's all, you know, extra stuff. So there we go. So now our coins updates properly. Let's go ahead and just, since we know what we're going to do, we'll change this to something like coin 0. And now at least it looks a little better. Coin 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. So we know our local versions are saving. We know our local versions are working. So let's see for chat. This will only work if you don't have a character that can die and respawn. Otherwise, you need to pass it from the instance to the character player state. Nothing technically is in here that goes through the player as far as I know. I didn't touch the player. So even if your player dies, and then we respawn the player, all of our values are inside the game instance. So don't really know on that one. And for the second one, I'm guessing when you're stating I can put a local variable in here in the user interface, and then I'm guessing you mean probably to bind it. That's my thought that you were going for. You could do that, but it's a difference between asking for that value every single time we update the display, because when you bind, it's going to check this every frame. When you have an event, it's only going to update when you call it. And since we only want to update whenever our coins are collected, there's no real reason to store anything like that in here. So basically, yeah, our UI is just displaying stuff, and it's told what to display. That's it. It is literally a UI. And more like a HUD, I guess, technically. I don't know, because... anyways, it's just meant to show stuff. That's all it does. Yeah, and if your player dies with a 60-minute timer, that's fine. We're not too worried about that. It really doesn't affect anything like this. But at this point, we have all of the basics done. We have our game screen. We can collect coins. We can get our game instance to update. So we're good now to work properly, and then we need to sync the two together. So let's go to our main menu map. Now we're going to run into an issue right here if I don't do anything. If I hit play, you'll notice my player spawns and we have some coins. That's because I'm using my game mode for the high score game mode. And remember that has a begin play event. So we could do two different things. We could have it where it checks to see which map it's in and it doesn't spawn this. Or that's actually honestly silly. Let's just have a separate game mode for the main menu. Game modes are tied to the maps, so there's no reason you can't have individual ones. And it lets you adjust things as needed, because maybe this is your game mode for the high score, but then you have another game mode that's a time trial, so you set it up differently. That's kind of what the game modes are for. It's to keep things that are unique to that map or game type. And technically, if we want to get, again, technical, our main menu is another map. It's got a different game type. We don't want a player, and we don't want our UI to spawn. So we'll do a new blueprint. We'll do a game mode base. We'll call this one, what was I calling everything else? Oh, we'll call this high score main menu of game mode. Okay, this is getting extremely large and named, because technically this one should be the high score. No, game mode. Yeah, it's fine. This is the main menu. Your stuff obviously won't be as named as silly as this, because you have one in your project. So let's see. This is using all of our base stuff. So technically, since we have nothing in our game mode, if we were to tell our main menu to use its own game mode, we should now have no user interface. We still have a player in here, I think. It's a good question. Let's find out. Or are we spawning in... nope, we're spawning as the default pawn, which is nothing. It's this little dude right here. So that's perfectly fine for us. We don't have any characters spawning in. We're just a blank thing in the world. So that actually works out well for us. Okay, good. So we somehow need to get our user interface on the screen. The nice thing is we know how to do that. Inside of here, in our begin play, in our game mode, we created a user interface. So we can just cheat. We'll go into our main menu game mode, paste the same code, We need to change this to our main menu UI right here. Now there's something to note. This is going to break. And this is something that's important. And I put this in one of the Game Jam ones. This by default, if we do none, our output value is going to, whoops, let's disconnect this first and save, compile it. Okay, so if it's nothing, our output is going to basically be, of course, seriously, you are just annoying. There we go. Okay. Oh, son of a, okay, so this is what I'm trying to show if it would have let me. By default, the output when you create a widget is just a user widget. It doesn't know which specific widget it is. Once you change this, well, okay, so to finish that off, if we were to take and create a variable here, it's going to be of type user widget. If we were to change this first to our appropriate user interface, let's disconnect this stuff and delete it. Now our output is going to be of the widget type. And that's important. So if you ever create a widget and you're going to save a reference to it, promote it to variable for later, always make sure you change it to the correct one first before you store the value, because that means we then don't have to cast. It allows us to know the exact one we're working with. So this is going to be our main menu, reference, add to our viewport. Yeah, because if I was to do it, and let's just, so I can actually show you what I was saying. If I was to do this, for example, and then we have, let's say this one's the main, we call this one main menu, reference wrong. If I was to pull off of here, our main menu reference, for example, and I wanted to call something inside of our main menu, so let's find our main menu. Oops, where'd I put it? Right here. Let's say we had a custom event. Oh, actually, this one's pretty simple. We can make a quit game event. I'll make this really simple. Quit the game. Go like this. And this is just an event called quit the game. If I didn't cast it, in this case right here, and I typed in quit the game, it's not going to work. Because this is a user widget. I still have to cast to my main menu, and then I can quit the game right here. Now because I changed it first, this one right here, I can just simply quit the game. I don't need to cast because it's already the correct type. And that's just something that's annoying because technically if you were to go through here and you constructed it with nothing, then you promoted it to a variable, and then you changed it, it's not going to change this. It's still going to compile fine because technically this widget has a user widget as a parent. So this is a user widget here, not the correct high score. Hopefully that was semi-clear enough. Because if you'll notice here, I can't quit the game. Even though I told it's a high score, even though these two things look identical, because I reversed one of the operations, it can be annoying. That's basically what I'm trying to get at. Where'd my quit button go? Oh, I don't have a quit button. Well, that really doesn't help. I have a reset button. Okay, so, and hello, Alex. So, let's see. So, we have our main menu, and we should have a user interface. I don't because I have nothing in here. Wait, do I? Oh, I do. Did I not actually set this up? Oh, I deleted my add to viewport. That didn't help at all. Okay, take 3. There we go. So there's our main menu right there. Don't wander. That is correct. I usually do put is valids for my toggles, but these are user interfaces that will never be recreated. The game mode only calls it on the begin play of each of these maps being loaded, so we should never have to worry about it ever recreating it. But that is a good point. I do usually put as valids if it's something like an inventory or a in-game menu, because it allows you to easily toggle it on and off. So now that we have this, let's hook up our high score, because that's kind of what we want. So I'm going to make a new function, just because I like keeping this stuff in functions. We'll call this one initialize the UI. And this just makes it easy, because if there happens to be more than one thing I want to do, I only have to put it in one spot. Let's see. So this is going to get the game instance. And we're going to cast this to our high score game instance. And then we're going to grab our high score. Now keep in mind, none of this is going to work. This is not supposed to work, so I'm not even worried about this right now. This is just what we want to work, and then it's not going to work, and then we'll discover why it doesn't work, and we'll go from there. We can delete our wrong reference. Okay, so here's our main menu reference. We'll get this. Now, technically, we can't do anything at this point because our main menu is blank. There's nothing in here to do anything with. So, custom event. We'll do the same thing we did before. Update high score. We know we're going to want an input on this one because we did this before. So we'll call some new value. You can obviously call it whatever you want. An integer. We'll grab the high score text. We'll set the text on it. Just hide it down here. And we'll grab this. And we'll do another format text. Because I like the format text node. It makes things super simple. And this will call this one high score, colon, space, curly bracket. And we'll call this one high score, close curly bracket. Hit enter. Get our magic high score variable. Boop, there we go. So now we should be able to call update high score with a value and the text will change. And we already did this before, so we'll go here, grab our main menu, update high score, hook it up, slap this little sucker in here, reorganize a little bit, and that should work. So now we should have high score 0. Now we have high score 0 because we don't have a high score. Technically, we've never gone into the game, collected stuff, and gone back to our main menu. Our game instance is persistent between map loads, but only while the game's running. So we're going to make it work between map loads, and then we're actually going to add in the ability to save to make it persistent between each game loading as well, because why not? So our issue now is we can't quit the game, and we can't start, we can't end the game once we're playing and go back to the main menu. And we can't go into the game from the main menu. So we're kind of like have two things disconnected. This should be super simple. Figure out where my user interface went to. Right here. And then find our start button. So start button is what it's called. Grab our start button. Make a new on-clicked one. And this should be super simple. We're going to open level. Now I know we've got some problems. Just because I've worked with this way too many times to know exactly what's going to happen. Here's our game map. Put this in here. And it should work if I click start game. And there's our game. Now we have a couple of problems. If I click anywhere else, I lost my mouse. I'm kind of screwed at this point. Unless I know the cheat sheet shortcut to get it back. And then once we're in the game, we still have our mouse until we click. Our user interface isn't... the game mode and the mouse cursor technically are not doing what we want them to do because we've never done anything with them. The nice thing is we have our game modes to control that. So let me close down the game mode here and here, and we just have our first game mode. You know, create our widget, update the widget, and then we're going to go ahead and give control to the mouse and keyboard. So we're going to grab our player controller because mouse control, keyboard control, and all that goes through the player controller. And we're going to set input, and we're going to set that to UI only because we only really want to mess with the UI right now. Now this will fix the first problem where it's now UI only, but the problem is I can't show the mouse. Now there's two cheesy ways to do this. We can show it in here and just tell it to show, or if we wanted to, we could always add this inside of the player controller itself if we had one, but we don't. Doing it this way is the simplest way. UI mode, mouse cursor, play, and now we have our mouse working. We can do whatever we want. Obviously, only the start button is going to work, and we're good. Now, of course, we can't control our character. Every time you do something, you should do the opposite if you want things to return to normal. So in this case, we grabbed our input mode and changed it to UI only, and we showed our mouse cursor. Once our game starts, we've never given control back to the game, so we need to do the opposite. The nice thing is we have game modes. We know the game modes are going to be unique to each map, so it's super simple to fix that. We'll do the exact opposite of what we just did. So in our begin play, create our widget, grab our player controller. We're going to this time set the game mode, well, set the input mode to game only. Game only is the default for the game. If you don't change anything, it's game only. That means your mouse cursor, your UI doesn't take input, but your player controller does, your mouse and, you know, WASD for movement and such. Set show mouse cursor, set it to false, so it hides the mouse cursor. And in theory, sometimes I screw this one up, but let's see what happens. We should be good. We should be able to go to our main menu, hit play. We have our mouse cursor working happily. Hit start, and we're back in the game. We can move around, and our input is like we expected. Cool. Let's find a way to get back to the main menu now while we're playing. I'm thinking the easiest way personally, because it'll be the easiest for me, is I'm going to... Well, no, I can't do that, because we want to test high score. So I'm going to just hook up a hotkey on the player to have it basically end the game. But this would basically be the end game event that will trigger off all of our code. So with that, I'm going to make it simple on me, so I don't have to code in an end game event. And you guys can ignore all of this stuff, because I'm pretty sure this is all code that I was doing for something else, because I tend to do that. Okay, so let's see. Custom event. This one should be super simple. I'll make this the O key, because I don't think I'm using that at all. Let me double check something, because this one tends to bite me in the butt too. Let me make sure it actually works. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I tend to run into an issue where my input paths are not proper sometimes, and I spend 10 minutes trying to remember that I forgot to turn on input. So we're good. We got input. So we're just going to simply open level on this one, and we're going to go back to our main menu. We're going to fill in code here in a little bit, but for now, you know, make sure stuff works. We need to make sure we can transition between the main menu and the game. We know we can go one way. Let's make sure we can go the other way. So in theory, we can start the game, hit the O key, go back to the main menu, start the game, hit the O key, go back to the main menu. Now our code should work for the score on the top. If we pick up one coin, we have one coin in our level. If we hit the O key, no, never mind, it shouldn't work because of the fact we never did anything, but that worked fine. We hit start game, we're back to 0 coins. Okay, yeah. Remember I said we were supposed to put something here? Yeah. We gotta actually put it here in order to make it work. Okay, so here's a question that you'll have to answer for yourself, Sirius, on this one. Your high score, will your high score be updated every time you collect a coin? Or will it only be updated if you've successfully finished your game? In my case, I'm going to treat it as if your high score is only valid if you've successfully finished your game. Your time limit's run up, you've ran out of lives, you've hit your end game condition. Basically, before our game ends, we're going to do our check here. So I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to make a custom function just so it hides all the stupid code. We're going to call this one handle end game. Technically, this shouldn't be in here, so I'm actually going to delete that, and we're going to start over doing this properly. So let's not put it in there. We should have our game mode handle ending the game. Our player shouldn't handle this stuff. So we're going to get our game mode, and we're going to cast this to our high score game mode. Remember, this is our high score game mode, the one that's just for this game mode in here. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to have a function, which I haven't set up yet, and then we're going to go ahead and open our level. So let's find our high score game mode, and now we're going to create a function in here called end, handle game over. This way, anything special can be handled. Saving, loading, doing our check here we're going to do here in a second. It can all be handled in this nice, happy little function. Now that we know we have it, we can handle the game mode back here. Handle game mode, handle game over, and hook it back up. And there we go. Technically, I would check that, I'm not going to even say technically. I'm going to check this. Let's make sure it actually is printed like that. Let's hit run. Let's hit start game. Let's hit O, and we should see handling game over. There we go. It may seem silly, especially to advanced coders who generally don't make mistakes, but I make mistakes all the time, and taking a couple seconds every so often after you've implemented a new feature or you've done some sort of a changeover, like in this case we're changing from our player to the game mode, just verifying it works will help you later when you're half an hour into 7 different functions and you're wondering why the first function no longer works, but you forget to check the first function because, you know, you're 7 functions later. This way we're at least checking while we go along. So handle game over. This one should be pretty simple. Our handle game over is going to check our current score against the high score and then make sure that the high score is our high score. And then later we're going to handle saving values out to a save game object. We're going to do the first one first. Because, well, that's why it's the first one, I guess. Let's get our game instance. And this is also one nice thing that is good about doing this inside of a function. I don't have to clutter up my variables. I can just make a local copy of it. So that way it's only inside of here. And this is local game instance. And that way, because we're going to end up needing our game instance to do a couple checks. And it'll keep our code a little bit cleaner. So now that we have our game instance, we're just going to do a simple if check. Technically, I could probably do a... Can I do a select with this? You know what? Let's do a select because I like selects. Selects are way more fun. Okay, so we're going to do a select here. What we're going to do is grab our game instance, and we're going to go ahead and set the high score. We're going to set it no matter what. And I'll show you why we're going to do that. And that's what's nice about our select here, is it's going to allow us to set it to the proper value every single time. So we're going to do something like that. And not hit the wrong buttons. There we go. So we're going to need to feed in a Boolean here. And then we're going to feed in one of two options. We're going to feed in either the current score, or what are we going to feed in? What's the easiest way of doing this? I know this might seem silly to more advanced coders, but this at least lets our flow read better, I'm thinking. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our high score. Okay. I want this right here. I'm just moving this to the side for now. And then we're going to grab our local game instance, and we're going to get the current score. Okay. So these are the two things we care about right here. So let's do a simple check. And we want to see if our current score is greater than our high score. This is our check right here. Do we have a new high score at this point in time? If we do, we're going to do something to our high score. So if our current score is greater than our high score, if I can stop doing that, there we go. We're going to want to say true right here. And we're going to tell our variable to save right here, our high score variable, it is now going to be the current score. If not, it's going to be the high score. Now this may seem weird, but if we read through this, this is how it works. We are going to do a check, and we are going to see if our current score is greater than our high score. If it's true, then we're going to set our high score to the current score. We have a better one, so we're going to set it. If it's false, we're going to set our high score to whatever it currently is. That may seem weird, but it's not really that big of a deal to do that, honestly. And if you read through this, even though we have all this weirdness here, if you read through it, it reads through like that. Check to see if our current score is greater than our high score. If it is, set our high score to the current score. If it's not, set our high score to whatever it is currently. So keep it as it is. This should work in terms of what happens when we do a game over. And in theory, this should work right here. Let's find out. Start game. Grab a coin. Hit O. High score 1. Hit start game again. We have our current map showing coins of 0. Hit O. High score still 1. Now we can grab 2 coins. Oops, apparently I grabbed 3 coins. I think. Uh-oh. Oh, we ran into a bug. Did anyone notice the bug? High score of 3. Okay, so we ran into a bug. Let me grab 1 coin right here. And this is a bug because I technically was lazy. We'll grab this coin, and instead of being 1, it's going to be 4. Now, it's a bug because I was lazy, and I'm going to be honest about that one. Inside of here, well, first of all, let's compare two different things. Here's our high score for the game UI we were playing, and here's the high score for the main menu. Inside of our code, oops, I meant to open up the game modes, is what I meant to do. Yeah, let's open up both game modes like this. This is what I meant to do. Our main menu's game mode right here. When we initialize the user interface, we're getting the value from our high score and setting it to our display. In our game mode right here, we are never actually touching the user interface. We're never setting up our user interface to the proper value. And because I was being lazy inside of our interface for our game, and I used coins 0, it kind of looks like it's working properly. But if we were to actually change that back, hit play, hit start game, now you'll notice we actually have a bad display. Like Wandered is mentioning, I'm not resetting it to 0, and that's correct. I'm never actually resetting the current coins back to 0. So we have two ways of doing this. We can do it inside of our main menu, or we can do it inside of the game mode. My personal preference is going to be inside the game mode, because we're going to want the game mode to handle what happens during the game, this current map. So somewhere in here, we should basically reinitialize any of our variables to the start state. That would probably be the smartest thing to do. In this case, we only have one, so it's pretty simple. But we're still going to do this in a function, because it makes it easy if we wish to expand. So we're going to go initialize starting values. We'll just call it that. Initialize starting values. We're going to get our game instance, because this is where we're storing everything. Go ahead and cast it over to our high score game instance. Now, in case anyone's noticing how many times we're having to cast, this is why I use blueprint interfaces, because it's one extra node I don't need to use. And once you start doing things over and over, I don't really feel like doing it. We're going to set our current score to 0. So all we're going to do when we initialize the starting values is set our current score to 0. That's it. Make sure we call this inside of our event graph when we start. So make our user interface, show our user interface. This is, show our user interface back to reset, and then we're going to go and initialize. I don't know if I like this flow here. This is what I'm thinking I'm going to do. We're going to turn this into a sequence, just because I would prefer this to be in a sequence. So we can kind of keep things separate in terms of looking at things. Basically, this will let us look at this visually if we commented this. And basically, we know that we're going to initialize our starting variables. And then separately, we're going to work on our user interface. So then later we could do something like, initialize spawners. But we can keep our things separate visually, so that way we know they're functionally different. So if we were to run this now, I think we're okay. Start our game, coins. If we grab this one, it should be 1, and there we go. We go back to our main menu, high score of 1, start our game. Now it should be 1 and 2. Go back to our main menu, high score 2, start our game, grab a coin, go back to our menu, high score of 2. So we're good there. We have an issue with our user interface, obviously. In our main menu, when we start up our main menu game mode, wherever I hit that up, we do have our little initialize the UI code here. We should probably do the same thing. So let's go back to here. Let's make another function called initialize the UI. Initialize the UI. Let's see, game UI. Now we're going to run into an issue here, but I will fix this in a second. Hopefully everyone will see the issue we're going to run into when I do something really stupid right now. Grab our UI. So we need to find our UI, wherever we put it. Let's see. That is our game UI. Let's make another custom. Oh, we already have one called update coins. So we're fine. Never mind. I already have an invented here. Duh. Update coins. Super simple. And I'm hoping someone will see exactly where I'm going to make a mistake here. Get our game instance. We're going to cast this to our high score game instance like this. We'll just, move some stuff around like that. Move this over here. Get the current score. And there we go. So now whenever we start this, our current score that we're seeing should be equal to the current score that we actually have. We need to put this somewhere. So we'll go ahead, and since this is an initialize, we'll go ahead and put it after this. So we'll initialize the starting values, then we'll initialize the UI. Now, hopefully someone sees that it's broken. Oh, Sirius is the person that I am trying to help. So he's watching all this stuff. So he's the one who's, this is for. That may be why he's doing all the thumbs up. But if you notice, our user interface isn't working, and we should get an error. Hopefully someone caught the issue. I'm initializing the user interface before I'm actually creating the user interface. So the nice thing is now that I have a sequence here, we'll just do this. So technically now I can initialize starting values, create my user interface, and set my input mode back, and then now initialize the user interface. So we'll hit play. Now we have coin 0. Now we should be able to, let's grab 4 of them, quit out, high score 4, start the game, we're back to 0. I can grab 4, quit out, hey, high score 4. Oh, no, I'm going to do better this time before I fall off. Let's grab 5 this time. Alright, I won. High score 5. Cool. So that is our basic logic. That actually works and functions fine there. One thing I'm going to do in addition to this is I'm going to add in saving out to a save game object because, well, actually, we didn't finish everything technically. I just realized you have a reset option that I didn't put in. Main menu UI. Let's hook up the reset option. And this one should be pretty simple. We'll go to the reset option. All we're going to do when we click the reset option is we're going to reset our high score in the game instance. That's all we're going to do in here. So we'll get our game instance. We're going to cast this out to our high score game instance. We're going to set the high score to 0. And then that works. We have an issue, which I'm going to fix here. We're going to set it, but keep in mind, just because we set the variable, we don't actually can see the new variable. The nice thing is we have a custom function here. Update high score. Plop in our thingy right here, and we're done. So now we should be able to play. High score 0, start. Grab a couple things, fall off the map. Hit O, high score of 3. Hit reset, high score of 0. Go back to start game, and we're good to go. We're back to how we were. Our high score is persisting between each map, as you can see here. Our current score is persisting in the current one. It's updating, and if we hit reset, it resets back to 0. Now we can add in saving, because that's what I intended to add in extra. So, a couple different places to save. Probably anywhere we update our high score to the new value would be where we want to save it. So we have 2 places. One is the reset button. One is inside the game when we're game over. Since those are all nice and compartmentalized in their own functions right now, it should be super simple to add in a saving function. So if we go into our game mode and we find, assuming it was game mode. Was it game mode? High score game mode. Yeah, okay. Yeah, oh yeah, and I handle game over. Here we go. This is the one where we're saving out to the game instance. Now we're going to save out to a save game object. Technically, I can put it in here, or I could put it in its own function. Save game itself tends to get a little messy, but let's put it in here, and the nice thing is we can always copy it into its own function. We're going to do this sort of wrong in the beginning, and then we're going to go from there. So our save game object is where we're going to save our variable. The save game object, what's nice about it is it's pretty much the same thing as the game instance in terms of storing stuff. It's just an object that holds variables for you to do stuff with. So we'll make a new save game object, blueprint class, type in save game, grab the save game itself, and select high score save game. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. If we were to go into our game instance and look in here, we have our high score and our current score. We probably don't care about our current score because once they start the game over, they have to start from scratch anyways. But we care about our high score. It's an integer, should be super simple. Go into our save game, wherever I put it, right here. Make a new variable. We'll call this one high score. Naming it the same just makes it easier for me. You can name it obviously whatever you want, because you do whatever you want with it. But we have an integer called high score inside of our save game. So let's create our high score object, so high score save game. And this is going to give us back our high score save game object. Now one thing to note here is you'll notice it's just a generic save game reference. This one doesn't change automatically, which is super annoying. So we will have to cast no matter what. But now that we have our high score save game object, we can grab our high score variable and set it to whatever we want. And this one should be super simple because we already know our game instance high score is what we want. No matter what, this value right here, high score inside the game instance, is going to be the one we care about. So we'll go ahead and set it right here. And you know what? I'm going to put this up here just so I don't have to put stuff underneath, because I don't really care. It's just going to be hiding up there. There we go. That's good enough. So we're going to grab the one out of the local game instance, and we're going to set the one inside of our save game. Once we're done with that, we want to save our game out to disk. So now we're going to save game to slot. Now we have a couple issues here, and this is why we're building it like this on purpose, so we can see all the issues. We need an object. Well, over here we created the object, but we never saved it anywhere. Now we could store a reference to it, or we could just drag off. It doesn't really matter. We'll do this and make it look prettier. And normally you'd want to save this out to an object, and you'll see why here shortly. But for now, we just want this to work. Slot name, it's anything you feel like. Just call it save slot. If you only plan on having one save game, we'll just call it save slot. You could call it save game, you could call it my awesome save name, doesn't really matter. User index is pretty much pointless. It's usually only for multiplayer locally. Honestly, all it matters, plug in your save game, give it a name. This is it. This is all that should be needed to be done right here. Create a new save game object, grab our variable out of it, and set it right here to the new value we want, and then save it back out to disk. We're going to run into an issue, but that's what we care about right there. We can't actually do anything, so we should do something with it. And there's a reason why I'm not putting this in the reset thing yet, because we're going to work on that later. We just want to save out when we leave, and we want to reload it when we come in. So now that we're saving out, let's find the way to load it. The nice thing is, we have our own game mode in here for the main menu, and it's going to handle the user interface, so let's just make sure that this value right here is valid before we set up our user interface. So we set this up here. Let's make a new function. We'll call this one load save game. And you can, of course, call it whatever you want. From what I've seen on Android, there should be no issue. The Android should use the local store. The iOS uses local store. Windows uses the app data folder. It should work without an issue. I haven't encountered any issues with it. But if it doesn't work, then there's really not much you can do about it, honestly. This is the way saving works. So cross your fingers and hope it works, I guess, is the attitude we want on this one. Okay, so loading save game, complete opposite of saving the same game. So we'll load a save game, which I hate. This is something you might run into, and I hate this. I really wish they would fix this. You have save game object, create save game to slot. But when you go to load and you type in load save, it doesn't work. For whatever reason, they thought it would be smart to call it load game from slot. So all the other ones have save in the title except for loading, which is really friggin' annoying. So we'll call this one save slot, index 0. Basically just match these two together. Save slot, index 0, save slot, index 0. It's going to return back a generic save game. We're going to want to make sure we cast it so we can get our variables out of it. And then at this point, we're going to basically grab our game instance, cast it to our game instance. I'm just copying because it's easier. And then we're going to make sure we set the value inside of here. Well, we're going to grab the value from the save game and save it. Set it in. Let's just do this. Set high score. And we'll go backwards. There we go. And then we will get high score. This will probably be a lot easier to explain if I have a visual. That's why I like blueprints. I can visually show stuff. We are going to grab our high score out of our instance. Grab the high score out of our save game. And then set it inside of our game instance. Hopefully that's easy enough to understand. And that's all you need to do right here. Except add a reroute node so it's a little bit cleaner. There we go. That's all you need to do right there. So yeah, so grab our save game, make sure it's the correct save game. We're going to go ahead and set the high score inside of our instance to the high score inside of our save game. Simple as that. In theory, I want to say this is going to work. Except I don't think I hooked it up yet. So our code is load save game. Let's figure out the right place to put it. I'm going to put it in the beginning, and I'm going to do what we did before because I like keeping things organized. This at least allows us to not have to basically scroll to the right forever by using sequences. And it keeps our code, our logic flow separated. So yeah, first thing we're going to do is load our save game. Next thing we're going to do is set up all of our user interface. Good morning, Sterling. So if I did this right, we should be good to go. We should be able to start our game. Grab a couple coins. Hit O. We have our high score working. Start the game. Grab a couple coins. Hit O. We still have a valid save score here. Quit out. Start the game. And there's our high score again. And of course we can start our game. If we want, we could grab 4. Oh, we could not fall off. I still have sprint turned on this playground thing, so that's the problem. Once I get going too fast, I get going too fast. Grab 4 coins, quit out, high score 4, close the game, hit play, high score 4. Now we do have an issue where if we reset this, quit out, and come back, our high score is still persistent. Because when we reset, all we're doing is setting the game instance version, not the save version. So that's really easy to fix, and we'll do that here in a second. And good morning, Sterling. I don't remember if I said that. I kind of just kept talking, I think. So this should be pretty simple. We need to figure out where it's at. So that's going to be inside of our... Let's see. So we have a reset button. Our reset button's in our main menu user interface. So let's look at that. Let's find the code for it. So when we click reset, we are just setting our game instance value to 0. Okay, should be super simple. There's a couple different ways of doing this. Technically, if you think of a reset, we think of basically resetting everything. So I'm going to technically reset everything. So we're actually going to cover the last save game node, which is highly amusing. So we actually have, it should, stop it. We should have a, remove, clear. I hate finding these stupid nodes. Oh, seriously. How? Seriously, library? Are you gonna do this to me? Game. Okay, so... Some of these things are named horribly, horribly wrong. Save game to slot. I'm looking for the one that deletes the save game. Delete game and slot. Yep, remember I told you some of these don't have the word save in it? Well, that would be one. You know what? Let's keep this here, just so that we don't have to walk over nodes. We'll put the delete at the end. So that way, basically, this deals with the game instance, this deals with the save game. Call this save slot, and that should be it. This will basically clear off the save game from the disk, and once we're done with that, we shouldn't have an issue. I think I have one bug left, but it may not be a bug with the way we've got this implemented, but I'm going to cover it anyways. So we have our high score of 4. If we hit reset, we're back to 0. We close, we hit play, we have back to 0. Now that we're clearing out the save game on the disk and on the instance, all the code is wrapped together. Now the bug I think I have in my game mode under save game, right here, is every single time we're coming into here and handling the game over, we're basically creating a new save game slot. For our instance here, since all we're really doing is storing one variable in here, we're not going to have a problem. If you had more than one variable you wanted updated, and they updated at different times, like for example, this one was just the high score, but another one may be the player's name or something like that. When we create a save game object, we're basically creating a brand new blank one. We're ignoring anything that exists on the storage already, so we're going to overwrite. So yeah, like Wander just pointed out, we'd want to do something like either checking to see if a save game exists or loading the existing one. Technically both of them will work, because if you again, you're seriously going to call that, this would return back null if it fails, so we can always do a valid check after that instead of checking for, you know, save game exists, something like this. I mean, technically, it's going to end up both basically the same thing. So either one works. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, and I do have videos on save games. I have multiple ones, one for the game jam itself and the one for the save game object on how to use it. So I'm not going to cover that here, since I think we've covered the basics of what Sirius was looking for. But this is something to note. If you are doing this, it's creating a blank one. So all your default values are now going to be inside of here. If you actually have other values you care about, then you want to do something like loading and checking, or checking and then loading. I mean, that's what's really stupid about this. You're basically doing this right here, and then loading, and then if not here, you'll end up creating. So this is kind of what you end up doing in here. And then you load, and then you can use the existing values or create a new one. So yeah, I'm not going to go into that too much detail, but keep that in mind. This one creates a new one. So if you have extra variables, you're going to have to look into loading before you actually change the values. But I think that should be it. This video will be on archive. I'm going to go ahead and... how long have we been streaming today? See, it's been an hour and 12 minutes, and as much as I'd like to get into the AI stuff, if I got to it now, I'm going to be an issue. So I think I'm going to wrap up here shortly. I'm going to take Sterling's advice, though. I'm going to take Sterling's advice, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go through all of these things for a couple seconds to keep them on the screen. So if you want to copy the code and you're having problems, you'll be able to easily go to this section later and just look through the code as it's on the screen rather than just me flicking around. Sterling, in regards to saving on the fly, it will pause if you have enough data. Generally, there's not a lot of data, so it's not too much of an issue. It's a very small hitch. It is not an asynchronous operation, unfortunately. I've just never had enough information to ever cause a problem. And I think if you ever got to the point where you're having hitches due to saving, it would be smart to either refactor it or have multiple save game objects for each of your different things. One for your inventory, maybe one for enemy state, one for chest state, stuff like that. Okay, so let's wrap up our code here. So we have our two maps, which are just maps. We don't really care about the maps. Our coin we don't really care about because all we're doing is collecting it. But I'll put it on the screen anyways. All we're doing is hitting. Whenever we get hit, we're basically increasing our score inside of our game mode and then destroying ourselves. So pretty simple there. We have our player who doesn't really do anything special, so we can ignore him. We have our instance, which literally only holds 2 values. Our current value and our high score. Our high value and our current value. We have our... I'm going to go through these ones last because they're the longest. We have our save game, which literally just consists of 1 value. Our high score, because that's all we care about saving. Our material doesn't matter. We have our user interfaces. So our user interface for our game is pretty simple. And you've got the basics of this one down, so it's not much of a problem. We have a text block. Let me go back to that. And all the text block does is has an event that changes what it looks like. We use the format text node to give us our nice little formatted text. Because if you didn't do that, you'd have to append or have multiple nodes. But format text is friggin' awesome. And that's all that's in here as far as I know. Let's hit the home key and find out. Yep, so that's all we have inside of here. Inside of our main menu, it's pretty simple. We got a couple buttons, and we have our coins for displaying our high score. Let's see, we'll hit the home key. We have 3 events, it looks like. These should be pretty simple. Our start button just loads up our map. Our update high score, it's just like it is inside of our game. We're basically updating our text block to show the score using a format text node again. And our reset button basically grabs our game instance and sets our high score, which we stored inside of our game instance, to 0. We click the reset button, you know, obviously whenever we want to reset. But also importantly, we update the high score after we reset it, so that way it shows it's 0 now. And then we're deleting the save game because that would be smart. We're resetting everything. So that's what this one looks like right here. And if I hit home again, so that's all we have inside of our user interfaces. So now we have our game modes. We're going to start with the main menu one first. Our main menu one, let's close down everything extra. We'll go hit home. And we only have one thing it looks like inside of here. And I'm going to do this because we can. Whoops. Okay, that would be closing it instead of making it bigger. So let's... Okay. Third try. Again. There we go. That's what I was trying to do and failing miserably at. Now we can actually make it bigger on the screen. There we go. So when we begin play, we just simply run through a sequence. The sequence loads our save game, and then it creates our widget, stores a reference to the widget, and adds it to our screen. We initialize our UI, so we'll cover that function as well, and then we make sure our input is set to UI and show the mouse cursor. Our load save game event is pretty simple, which I can't keep full screen, though that sucks. I'll just move these ones over. There we go. So this one's pretty simple. All we're doing is loading from the save game, casting the high score, grabbing our game instance and casting it to its version of itself, and then setting the game instance's version of the high score to be the same as the save game's version of the high score. And our last one should be initializing the UI, and all it does is, again, grabs the game instance, grabs our high score, and updates the high score inside of our user interface. And all that does is format it so it looks pretty. I did see your text garbage. Give me a second. I'm going to finish this one up. That should cover all of our stuff inside of our main menu. Our high score, let's close these out. We'll go to our event graph and zoom out. We've got 3 things it looks like. Our main one are in our begin play. Basically initializes our starting values, creates our user interface, and sets it up so that we can control our character again, and then initializes the user interface itself. The starting values is really simple. All we're doing is resetting our current score back to 0, so that way it's good to go. This is where you'd put, like, resetting your time to 0 or resetting any goals, whatever. This is a great place just to initialize your starting values. Our initializing the UI, again, pretty simple. Grabbing our current score and updating it to our current score. Since it should be 0, we're good to go. The other events are increasing our score. So whenever the coin gets picked up, it tells our game mode to increase the score by grabbing our current score value from our game instance, adding 1 to it, and then setting it right after we grabbed it. And of course, since we updated, we want to update our UI, so it's the current value. So we have that there. And then update UI, which actually I can keep on the same screen, is, again, really simple. Grabs the interface, grabs the current score, and tells it to update the coins. And the update coins, of course, just says coins, whatever. We'll hit home. Whoops, we'll uncheck everything and hit home. That handles our basic events. We have 3 functions in here. We handled the starting ones for starting values. This is basically resetting it and initializing. So we covered those ones. But then we have handle game over, which is our last one. I'll make this one full screen properly. There we go. We'll cover this one. Again, grabbing our game instance, setting it to a local variable. That way we don't have, wires running everywhere. Because we'd end up, we'd end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'd end up with 6 wires coming off of here if we didn't store it to a local variable. So that's what's nice about putting things in functions. We do our simple little check. Is our current score greater than a high score? If it is, then make our high score equal to the current. If not, make our high score equal to itself. Save that out, of course. Create our save game object. We'll go to right here. Make sure our save game object is the correct one, because obviously you can't grab off of here and ask it for the high score, because the save game object doesn't know about the high score. Only our high score save game object knows about the high score. Which is funny, because a lot of this stuff is really confusingly named, because it all says high score. But yeah, once we have the correct object, go ahead and set the value inside of our save game to whatever our current high score is, and then save it out to disk. And that should be it. That should cover everything. Hopefully I went slow enough on this where you can come back and pause if you have any problems. And again, and hopefully I explained it as well as I went over it. Clean enough. That should be everything. If you have any problems, feel free to message, put the YouTube... Oh my gosh. Just comment on this YouTube chat. Okay, third try again. Once this video goes on archive in a couple hours, you can feel free to just comment on it if you have any more problems. So, not an issue. And I'm more than happy to help out Sirius. I realize this is not technically something I've ever covered in another video before. Handling different user interfaces and value changes, resetting things, high scores. I've never technically handled a high score in anything before. So this was a good video for me to do for other people to see as well. So I was more than happy to help. Now Garbage asks a question. Where should we leave our questions for you that don't pertain to the video subject? That's a good question, and actually I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video with that because it's how I normally wrap up my videos. We've gone for about an hour and a half today, and I've got floods everywhere, so I'm going to have to take care of that stuff. I appreciate everyone hanging out. I was hopefully able to help everyone and stuff like that. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them during the streams. Seriously. My streams are for me to occupy myself and answer questions and help people out. If you don't have the ability to answer it on the stream, or I didn't get to it or whatever, feel free to comment on stream video for today. Just, hey, I've got a question about this. Or you can leave me a comment on my general YouTube channel under comments. Or you can leave it, I have Beam, I have Twitch and YouTube, we're all streaming. My email address is on the About section of YouTube, so you can contact me there if it's something else you need to ask, or you don't want to ask it on a comment or whatever. And I have Twitter as well, so you can ask it on there as well. So, oh, and then in addition to that, the one thing that I didn't pull up today because we didn't work on it, this is more for requests, but this is also linked in the About section as well. This is the Blueprint video list, and I think Sirius asked a question on this one. Everything in here, well, okay, let me, oh my gosh, and Sterling's ahead of me as well. That is friggin' awesome. This is what I meant to do. Okay, so in the channel on here, in the About section, you'll find the request list right here, and you'll find my email address right here, and then you'll find the GitHub for some of my files. I need to actually update that. But this request list is this giant list here. It's a list of all the stuff I've done. So to answer your question, serious, yes, these are all the videos that I've done and put on YouTube at this point in time. There's more that aren't on here because they don't go on this list, but this is all the general ones. You can add a comment anywhere. You'll see I've got a couple comments I need to go through and approve. So you can just add a comment if you want to request something specifically. So this is where you might request something. There is, again, the information on here. And then Sterling was nice enough to point out this website, which I was going to mention as well, which I probably should spell properly, but he put it into chat. It's join.unrealslackers.org. It is the Discord channel. It's a chat channel in real time with tons of people who hang out with tons of different topics. Come in, hang out, talk to other people who use Unreal, ask your questions, and get real-time answers. So this is a good place to go to. Just as fair warning, the lounge channel can get a little unruly. Feel free to just hang out in the other channels to get more specific answers to your questions. But don't be offended if something offends you in the lounge channel. It can get a little unruly at points, but that's what it's for. Doing development can get a little stressful and people like to just hang out. So those are all the places you can ask questions. You can contact me. You can get get a hold of me. Various words that are not coming out of my mouth type stuff. So to answer your question, hopefully garbage. You're not going to divert my current topic at any point. Literally, I'm not even worried about that. But if there's something you want to ask in general, ask it as a comment or email. If it's a request for a specific tutorial or something to cover, feel free to put it on the list. And with that said, we're at roughly an hour and a half. I appreciate everyone hanging out. Hopefully, I know I've literally said this is deja vu, so I'm going to skip past all that. Everyone have a good day, evening, night, or whatever it is for the rest of their time. I hope everyone has fun for the rest of the time. Again, third time I'm going to say it, but apparently I need to say it 3 times. I appreciate everyone hanging out and asking questions and participating. I'm going to let the stream idle for about 30 seconds, so it doesn't look like I just disappeared to the streaming services that are a little bit behind. And everyone have a good day. Again, I think that was the 5th time I said that. Yep, did mute the mic, did I? Yep. My microphone is really, really annoying where I have to hit the mute button at the right spot. So thank you for pointing that out, Harry.